Happy Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Morning JOX. I'm Conrad Van Order alongside Damian Mitchell, and we'll be here with you until 7 a.m. when we hand you off to McElroy and Kublick in the morning, starting to get you ready for week 3 of the college football season. It feels weird to say that. We wait so long for the season to be here, and before we know it, it'll be a quarter of the way over, which is very depressing to say. But we also have a little bit of looking back at week 2 to do as well. You had Monday Night Football action last night that we will get into as well. But as we move into this part of the week and start to turn our attention to what's coming up next weekend, you did get to hear from both Alabama and Auburn yesterday, get some updates on what's going on with both of those programs. Auburn going to take on South Alabama this weekend before they start getting ready for SEC play. Alabama taking on Wisconsin at home this weekend. As they do the same, they're going to have a bye week heading into the Georgia game. But some big opponents for both Alabama and Auburn as they're going to start with Georgia and Oklahoma. And I think you could definitely say Oklahoma right now, if you weren't a believer coming into the season, you probably are right now. They look like one of the best teams in the conference. And then obviously Georgia doing the same. But I think it's fair to say maybe Georgia has a couple question marks as well. I don't know that we're all totally sold on the Gunnar Stockton experiment and what that's looking like for them. They still have some wrinkles to figure out as well. So I feel like right now, overall, and I don't know if you agree with this, Damian, I feel like everybody has a couple warts. And it doesn't mean that those can't go away over the course of the season. It's still very early on, but even a team like, you have LSU that has this big win over Clemson in week 1, and we're all ready to crown them as, they're the best team in the conference. But then after another week, you see the performance they give against La Tech. You see Clemson struggle against Troy, and it kind of, I think, shifts your opinion of maybe that opening week matchup a little bit. I think for Texas, right, they still have a lot to improve on as well. Again, I just talked about Georgia. Alabama obviously has gone through some struggles as well. And it's very interesting because I think a lot of these teams that we assumed, all right, this is the class of the SEC this year, they've all seemed to have their own issues here early on.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of the finding your identity early on. And since you said it out loud, the only team really that I don't have any big questions about, crazy enough, is Florida State. Like through 2 weeks of the season, granted, I know the second opponent was nothing close to what you had opening weekend.
You know what their identity is.
Oh, yeah. Like it's Gus Malzahn chewed up and spit out. It is the quarterback's going to run the ball. The running back's going to run the ball. Receivers, we may get to you when we get to you. But as far as finding your identity through 2 weeks, I think they're probably the only team, and I'd throw Oklahoma in there too because of what John Mateer's been able to do. But like you said, I feel like every team, even just across the SEC, there's still a few question marks. Missouri is another team that pops into my head because going into the season, I was kind of in the gray area. I was like, well, if they're 10-2 again, is this just what Eli Drinkwitz is, or if they regress back to 8-4, 7-5, it's like, okay, it's kind of par for the course. But through 2 weeks, it's okay. They've knocked off Central Arkansas and beat the brakes off them. Then they doubled down and beat up on Kansas. And, I mean, they were down early on and still came back. And the questions about Bo Perbula coming into the season, he's kind of solidified himself as I am QB1 and we are going at the speed of how I go. So I think just when you look across the landscape of college football, through 2 weeks, there's still a couple question marks for a lot of teams, even at the top.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So it should be a very fun season. Obviously, there's already been a good bit of chaos through 2 weeks and just a lot of unexpected results. And, we talked about this a lot last year and the last couple of years of parity and how the college game has changed with the portal and NIL. And I know a lot of people not happy with the direction that the game's going, but at the end of the day, while your favorite team may not have as much depth, it has certainly made a lot of Saturdays more interesting because it's kind of a free-for-all a lot of times. So we can get back to that a little bit later on, just maybe some of our biggest surprises and biggest disappointments through 2 weeks. Again, I know it's early on into the season, and I know a lot of us have the mindset of, well, once you get into conference play, that's when we're really going to learn a lot about these teams because, the competition's going to step up, obviously. So should be a very exciting season here. But again, just crazy to think that we're almost a quarter of the way through the 2025 college football season already. Hopefully it'll slow down for us just a little bit. But I did mention yesterday you got to hear from both Alabama and Auburn, Kalen DeBoer and Hugh Freeze with their weekly press conferences leading into this weekend's games. And we will start we'll start down in Tuscaloosa because you got to hear from kind of the whole contingent there. Of course, you got Ryan Grubb and Kane Womack as well, and they had a couple of interesting comments yesterday, I thought. But we'll start with the head man himself, Mr. Kalen DeBoer. And we'll just start number 6, Damian. This is Kalen DeBoer just kind of opening things up yesterday. These are some of his early thoughts on the Wisconsin matchup coming up this Saturday in Bryant-Denny.
You know you're going to get a physical team, typical Wisconsin, a lot of pride in who they are, what their identity is, and that showed up in the first 2 games. Very, very just, when it comes to run game, very, just kind of rock solid, keeping things under wraps. I think it's 60 to 70 yards total in rushing over 2 games. They do what they do, and they're going to do it with great technique in all ways. And, balanced offense, I think, with the run game really setting up the play action, the shots, going to try to get your free access throws, get the ball out to receivers when you have to load the box. And so there's some great fundamental things that they do, and we got to match the physicality with great effort, do a good job of getting ball carriers down, getting them into situations. I think just the name of the game would always be to put teams in down and distances they don't want to be in, make them uncomfortable, and you can pin your ears back and get after the quarterback.
So there you go. So that is Kalen DeBoer with his assessment of the Wisconsin Badgers coming up this weekend. And so real quick for you, so Wisconsin up to this point in the season, they have played MTSU, who they beat 42-10 this past weekend. And they started with Miami, Ohio, who they beat 17-0. So defensively right now, Wisconsin, the 3rd best team in the country in terms of yards allowed. So they're averaging right under 180 yards a game, 179 yards a game on the offensive side, and they're averaging only giving up 5 points a game. Granted, I think we would all agree that Alabama is going to be a step up in competition for them, but clearly a very physical, a very good defense early in the season for the Badgers. But, of course, their problem is going to be offense, and are they able to generate enough of that to keep themselves in the game with Alabama on Saturday? That we will have to wait and see on a little bit there. But how about this from Kalen DeBoer? I thought this was interesting. I brought it up yesterday, and it was the moment before kickoff when you had Tim Keenan there on the sidelines. You can see him walking over to Kalen DeBoer on the television broadcast and just kind of hyping up his coach. It's not something you see maybe on camera a whole lot. Maybe it happens more than we're aware of, but I think after everything that team went through last week, I think Tim Keenan going up to his coach and I assume reminding him, hey, we all got your back, coach. It was a special moment, and Kalen DeBoer was asked about that yesterday and just kind of expanded upon his moment with Tim Keenan before the ULM game.
He really missed not being at the game in week 1, and he's a high-energy guy. And I know that I really challenged him with and told him we needed that for our team. And so it wouldn't surprise me that, we had that exchange and him bringing that energy not just to our players but our coaching staff, including me. So, I really appreciate. He's a captain. He's poured into this program a lot. I do remember now. It was on the sideline there, him standing right there, right before kickoff. And so, that's just that's TK. He loves this team, and he's been nothing but the high-end support and, giving everything you got, and that includes me, and, feel very supported by him for sure.
So there you go. There's Kalen DeBoer talking about Tim Keenan and what his leadership brings and just that special moment they had before the game that really seemed to kind of light a fire under the entire team there. So very cool to see. Hopefully Tim Keenan's still going to be back for the Georgia game in a few weeks. But speaking of injuries, how about Jam Miller? Is he going to be available this Saturday against Wisconsin? Here is Kalen DeBoer with a quick update on his running back's health.
Yeah, we got a number of guys that are day-to-day, and he would certainly be one of them. We're optimistic that there could be a chance. I really don't think we'll know until we get in later in the week. You saw him in pregame. He was out there doing some things aggressively, trying to continue to push forward. You can see that with Jam. He's chomping at the bit. And we just got to make sure we're making a smart decision. But that will be left up to our training staff and our doctors, and also how Jam feels. And so he's making a lot of progress.
So there you go. Hopefully, Jam Miller going to be back on the field soon for the Crimson Tide. And I think that once he comes back, I feel pretty good that Kevin Riley has earned the role as running back too. I will say I thought Richard Young did some really nice things in pass protection as well on Saturday and has certainly taken some strides in that area that we know is very, very important as well. But going to be interesting to see how that room kind of shakes out once Jam Miller does get back on the field. But there are a couple of other quotes from the coordinators that I thought were interesting. So we'll start with Ryan Grubb. So he brought up the right tackle position that Wilkin Formby's been starting at. You got to see the freshman Michael Carroll some on Saturday. And Ryan Grubb asked yesterday, he says, I 100% see this as a competition. I thought Michael did a good job on Saturday. So maybe a little bit of competition there on the offensive line for some more playing time for a highly touted freshman and Michael Carroll. And we know Wilkin Formby has come a long way, but certainly a guy that struggled at times in his time there in Tuscaloosa as well. You also had Ryan Grubb talking about how he didn't think he was hard enough on Ty Simpson heading into week one and kind of how the decision to bring in Austin Mack, while that wasn't a threat on Ty Simpson's job, they knew that it was going to spark a little competition, right? It was going to light you up a little bit to know that someone else was going to come in and take some snaps. So they seemed to be pretty happy with how that resulted. And then Kane Womack was asked about the defense still not being able to finish their quarterback pressures with sacks. And he said, you've got to have guys that can finish. And right now we are not doing that. So that is a point of emphasis for Alabama moving forward this season as it should be, quite frankly. So let's hear a little bit from the Auburn side of things now. So you only got to hear from Hugh Freeze yesterday. But we'll start off the same way we did with Kalen DeBoer. Auburn going to play South Alabama coming up this weekend. So what has Hugh Freeze seen from South Alabama? What does he think of that matchup early on?
Very good G5 football team in South Alabama, and Major does a great job. He obviously has been with some good programs in nose ball, and Petrino is a very good offensive coordinator, and impressed with what they do on that side of the ball. And then defensively, they muddy up the picture really, really well with all their movements and different fronts that they give you. So got two of my former coaches down there on staff, so that's always throws another little dynamic to it in preparing, but have great respect for them, the job they're doing there, and I know that they'll be excited to come and play in Jordan-Hare this Saturday.
So there you go, Hugh Freeze on the upcoming opponent, South Alabama. A little familiarity there on the staff for Coach Freeze as well, so that should be a good one coming up this Saturday. How about Jackson Arnold, quarterback for the Auburn Tigers? We've now seen him win a game with his legs, seen him win a game with his arm. So what has Hugh Freeze seen of his quarterback Jackson Arnold now through 2 weeks of the season?
And he used his legs when he needed to. We didn't call any quarterback runs for him Saturday evening, but he still used them to be effective at times. But I mean, he was pretty, 24 of 28, so pretty good stat night, and thought he got our receivers involved and and allowed us to stay balanced like we'd like to be from game to game.
So there you go. There's Hugh Freeze with a brief assessment of Jackson Arnold and his performance, particularly in the second game against Ball State. And we'll wrap up with this because, unfortunately, we just talked about with Alabama. It's been a problem for Auburn now. And the injury bug has struck again. So this is Hugh Freeze with an update on some of the injuries going on in that Auburn running back room right now.
It will probably be a game time decision. I know he's going to try. I mean, he's trying. He went through walkthroughs this morning, but until you put the pads on and take a hit on it or something, I'm not sure exactly how he feels. So he'll be a game time decision. Unfortunately, we lost Darrell for a period of time to a freak injury. He didn't even really know he was hurt after the game. And Sunday morning, he had a collection of blood like I've never seen in all my years coaching on his thigh, and we had to kind of rush him to Birmingham to open that up and get the blood off of his leg, and they had to do a pretty good incision on it, so he's going to be out for a little while.
So there you go. Unfortunately, some bad news there for Auburn. Now, at the beginning of the clip, you were talking about Damari Alston. So Damari Alston going to be kind of a game time decision this weekend. but you heard that with Darrell Robinson, kind of a freak injury he got on Saturday. So hopefully he's able to have a speedy recovery, but looks like he's going to be out for a little bit. So, but I think Jeremiah Cobb certainly did a perfectly fine job on Saturday. So hopefully that will continue for Auburn this weekend against South Alabama. So that's your update from the Plains of Auburn as well as Tuscaloosa, Alabama. What's going on with both of those programs as they prepare for their Week 3 opponents. But we did have some live tackle football last night. We had Monday Night Football, the first edition this season. And I'll be honest, on paper, wasn't super excited for the matchup. But if you stuck it out last night, you got to see, I think we may have seen someone grow up before our very eyes last night, Damian. So we'll give you a recap, our thoughts on Monday Night Football and more from around the college football world, as well as a little taste of what happened in Week 1 of the NFL. That's all coming up next on Morning Jocks. 6:20 here on your Tuesday morning. Welcome back into Morning Jocks. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell here with you as we gave you the latest from Alabama and Auburn. Some injury updates there on the Plains. Some injuries in the running back room for both teams. Jam Miller going to be wait and see if he's going to be available for Wisconsin. Same thing for Damari Alston for Auburn and his status for South Alabama. But Darrell Robinson going to miss some time after getting a little bit of a freak injury on Saturday against Ball State. So that's the latest there for both of those programs. But I did mention we had football going on last night. And, to be fair, right, not maybe the most marquee matchup you could have on a Monday Night Football to kick off the NFL season or to put a cap on the first week of the NFL season, I should say. But you had the Bears and the Vikings last night. So there's some intrigue, right? You have Caleb Williams in year 2, Ben Johnson, the Lions OC, taking over as head coach there. Is he going to be able to turn this offense around? You had J.J. McCarthy making his debut for the Vikings after the Vikings had, they've had some good quarterbacks the last couple of years, and they're like, nah, we don't want any of y'all. We want this J.J. McCarthy guy. And so we got to watch that last night. And I will say, through the first half, little over a half of the game, I was ready to declare J.J. McCarthy is the worst quarterback I'd ever, like Will Levis level, like bad. Yeah. Really, really, really bad. Yeah. But something happened inside of him. I think after he threw that pick six, I honestly think throwing that pick six may have helped him out because it was this is the worst that can happen, right? It can't get worse than what I just did. So screw it. Let's just go play some football. And I don't know, maybe he answered that after the game and I missed it, but it felt like for him that moment where it was, all right, this is going to be the make or break moment, right? Are you going to go back out there and make another mistake like that? Or are you going to learn from it? And is the game going to start to slow down for you a little bit? And to his credit, the game certainly started to slow down for J.J. McCarthy. So the Bears were in control the entire game. They were up 17-6 going into the fourth quarter. Minnesota just really didn't have anything going offensively. As we said, J.J. McCarthy had thrown a pick six. The offense was just stalling. They couldn't get anything. Justin Jefferson had like one catch for 4 yards at halftime. It was just it was rough for them and for Kevin O'Connell, their head coach. But out of nowhere, J.J. McCarthy flipped a switch, and the Vikings scored 21 straight points in the fourth quarter. 21 straight points. So 3 straight touchdown drives for the Vikings. You had a touchdown catch to Justin Jefferson, then you had a touchdown catch by Aaron Jones, and then J.J. McCarthy with a 14-yard scramble for a touchdown there that ultimately put the Vikings up 27-17. To the Bears' credit, they would come back, score pretty quickly, and made it a 27-24 game with 2 minutes left. But at that point, Minnesota able to get it back and just kind of end the game that way. But what a performance, honestly, from J.J. McCarthy from, because I know we were talking before the show, Damian, but if you were watching this game and following along on social media, like every single football media person was crucifying J.J. McCarthy and, he doesn't need to be in there. This is a disaster. The experiment didn't work. Minnesota, just made the worst decision of all time. And all he did was find a way to battle back, score 3 straight touchdown drives in the fourth quarter, and get a comeback victory. That is certainly a way to start your NFL career with a victory over a divisional opponent in comeback fashion, Damian. It was impressive.
Yeah, I came away impressed by the way that he fought back.
Yes.
Because I have Justin Jefferson in one of my fantasy leagues, and I was getting frustrated because I also have A.J. Brown, and I was just like, okay, so this is how we're going to start off week 1. But I do think, and I got to give a lot of credit to Caleb Williams, too, because I will say early on, he looked like what a number 1 overall draft pick is supposed to.
I think he started like 10 for 10, something like that.
Yeah. And there were ropes, too. Like, he looked comfortable. And then kind of towards the end of the game, it started, you could tell he was starting to press a little bit. And he had a good quote starting before the game. He was like, I don't have to be Superman. Just take the plays that are given to me. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was doing that early on. And then as the game started to get out of hand and start to swing in Minnesota's favor, you could see he was starting to press a little bit. But overall, to kick off the opening weekend in NFL, I thought it was a great wrap up for Monday night. And again, like we saw the maturation of J.J. McCarthy. Again, that pick six, he was late on a out route on the far side of the field. you can't do that. And the DB called it, and he never broke stride. But like you said, I think that kind of flipped the switch for him of, okay, if that's the worst that could happen and we're still in contention, like we didn't necessarily just lose the ball game off that play, okay, we can keep fighting. And it was a great fourth quarter for Minnesota. And the NFC North division, man, it's going to be brutal, because I do think every team besides Detroit feel like they've gotten better over the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that Detroit hadn't, but when you add Micah Parsons to that Green Bay Packers defense, it's a little bit of a reality check to start the season off, especially with high expectations. But I think that division is going to be absolutely insane to watch as we continue through the NFL season.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think, based on, because I watched a few games over the weekend and watched some highlights of others, it'd be hard for me to not say the Packers are the best team in the NFL right now. That's after what they did to the Lions on Sunday. That was very, very impressive. I was ready to say the Packers in the Ravens and toot my own horn a little bit, because that was my Super Bowl prediction last week before the first game. But then, Josh Allen did Josh Allen things, and the Ravens just, I don't know, man. They just find a way to choke. But it was certainly an interesting start of the season. You have the Chiefs starting off there. Didn't look particularly impressive.
We had a Quentin Johnston sighting.
We did. He is actually, so this is fun, a fun fact for you. So through the first week of fantasy football, Quentin Johnston's been the best wide receiver in fantasy football.
That's insane.
Yeah, I'm just glad he learned how to catch a football after being a first-round pick a couple years ago out of TCU. You remember from that team that got slaughtered in the national championship game. But a fun week to start off the NFL season nonetheless. So the Vikings get a comeback victory 27-24 over the Bears last night. J.J. McCarthy, certainly I would have to imagine, at least within his own locker room, probably gained a lot of respect last night. And a lot of guys that maybe were unsure about the direction that organization was going, maybe you have a little more optimism today. Also, quick shout out to former Hoover Buck and Alabama kicker Will Reichard. He set a career high last night with a 59-yard field goal. Probably would have been good from about 62. It was a very impressive kick there before halftime. So shout out to the former Hoover Buck, Will Reichard, with his performance last night on special teams for the Vikings. So that's your little bit of your NFL recap from last night, the first Monday Night Football of the season. But now we want to get the conversation back to you and back to college football. So we want to open up the text line for this next topic. 205-834-9450. Get you on the courtesy GMC text line. Who are the biggest surprises and who are the biggest disappointments for us in the SEC through a couple of weeks? Now, granted, our opinions on this are going to change over the course of the season and certainly once conference play started. But now we've gotten to see, I feel like, a little bit of good and bad from just about every team in the conference. So who are the teams, the players that have been the biggest surprises, biggest disappointments? We'll share some of our thoughts with you and want to hear from you on the text line as well. That's all next on JOX. 6:33. Welcome back into Morning Jocks. Conrad and Damien here with you until 7 o'clock. Then we'll hand you off to McElroy and Kublick in the morning. Want to dive into some of our early season surprises and disappointments around the SEC. So I know we're only 2 weeks into the season, but we've gotten to see we've gotten to see both the good and bad of a lot of these teams so far. And we're going to learn a lot more, obviously, as we continue to move along, especially those first couple weeks of conference play. But still, fun exercise to do here because I do feel like there's certainly been some early takeaways for a lot of us. And appreciate all of you chiming in on the Courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450. And we will get to your text on the Courtesy GMC text line very soon, like this one that comes in from our buddy Bammer Abroad over in the UK. It says, it's way too early to be talking about being a quarter of the way through the season. This makes me sad.
I see what you did there.
I see what you did there. Thank you.
But it's a fact.
It is. Unfortunately,
it's the truth.
That's what we try to do here, is give you the facts. And unfortunately, the fact is that we're almost a quarter of the way through the season. But let's start off with some of the surprises, some of the positives that we've had here early on in the season, Damien. And so I'll throw one out there. The first one for me, and this is just for a particular player, and I think it was somebody that I really didn't know what to expect from them coming into the year, and now I'm all in through 2 weeks, right? We'll see once SEC play starts, but through 2 weeks, I've been thoroughly impressed, and that is Bo Pribula, the quarterback for the Missouri Tigers, transferred over from Penn State. I think there were little concerns in fall camp just because you hadn't heard of that separation between him and Sam Horn, and Drink making it known that both guys were going to play to start the season. And so, obviously anytime that happens, you start to go, okay, well, how good are either of these guys if they still haven't been able to separate in fall camp? But clearly he seems to be a gamer. When the lights come on, he is at his best. And you saw that, in the first week. I understand you didn't play anybody, and so it was easy to get maybe overexcited with what you saw. But I thought his performance against Kansas, had over 330 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air, didn't turn the ball over. Really, really impressed with what he can bring to that Missouri offense. And I know it's early on, but you may have upgraded from Brady Cook, which was something I didn't think you were going to necessarily do this year. But he has changed kind of my perception of Missouri football right now. If he's able to continue playing at this level, Damien, I think they have a pretty high ceiling this year.
Yeah, and I went with Missouri as a team as a whole. Kind of a surprise because I didn't – again, it's kind of when you don't have the expectations that high for this program, even though they've kind of shown you the past couple seasons that they can win double digits within the season. I think coming into the season, I didn't really know what to expect from Missouri. But 2 games in, the way they've gone out, especially on the offensive side, they've been able to continue to find a way to have success in the run game. Ahmad Hardy runs like an animal. Like, he runs violent with the football in his hands. And I think a lot of it, the way that they played against Kansas, the back and forth early on, but when they took control of that game, they really took control of that game. And when they need to put it on ice, they went back to what their bread and butter was, which is running the football, and they put the game on ice. So I think that Missouri has really changed my perspective on where they are as a program. Like, this program is legit. Like, what Eli Drinkwitz has been able to build has been pretty good. And I also have Vanderbilt. Not necessarily a shocking surprise, but the way that they have offensively with Diego Pavia through 2 games, they look flawless. Like, they really have a balanced attack where you, on play-by-play, you really don't know who's going to get the ball. And I think that last year it kind of set the tone, and then what they've done through 2 games now early on. Again, Virginia Tech, I think there's probably going to be some real uncomfortable conversations for Coach Pry and how that program is starting to look now. But I do think that finding themselves down early on, and when they jumped on Virginia Tech, they did not look back on both sides of the ball. They completely smothered them. So I think the dominance of Vanderbilt through 2 games has been pretty impressive to see.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think those are great selections there as well from you, Damien. So a couple on the defensive side that I had. So overall, I think we'd all agree. I think the LSU defense has been spectacular. Again, especially in the Clemson game, holding them to 10 points. Now, I know you go and look at the Troy game and maybe go, well, how impressed should we really be by that? But, I mean, still, based on what we've seen the last few years from LSU defensively, I think they've been spectacular. I mean, they're third in the conference in points per game allowed and yards per game allowed, which is a much bigger shift. And if the offense is able to pick it up and get to where we think they can be and where we expected them to be to start the season, and Nussmeier can turn it up a little bit, I think LSU is very legit and probably does have an argument to be the best team in the conference right now, and a national title contender. So we'll see what the rest of the season will hold for LSU. But I think early on defensively, I've been super impressed for them. And then also more so just this group, or really the front seven. But specifically the defensive line for Auburn, I think, has been exceptional. They are tied for the lead in the entire country in sacks. They have 10 sacks through 2 games. I think they're tied with Louisville and someone else for the most sacks in the country through 2 weeks. So I've been really impressed with that group. Now, granted, we heard the good things about them in camp, and so I didn't expect them to be bad, but for them to be this good this quickly has really, really impressed me, and that's something you got to be really excited about if you're an Auburn fan, especially because a lot of those guys that are contributing are young guys that have stepped up. So I think defensively, both LSU and then Auburn's defensive line have been quite impressive.
Yeah, and to the point on Auburn, I didn't really have too many questions about the front seven, but the way that they have dominated. Like, you go back and watch that Baylor game, especially after Baylor played SMU, you realize, like, not to say Auburn left some stuff out there, but if that Auburn team that played against Ball State would have played against Baylor in week 2, if they would have swapped the weeks, Baylor probably loses that game by 28 to 35 points, because I think the smothering effort that they put out against Ball State. Again, Ball State isn't a good team, but they went out there and handled their business. Like, again, we can joke, but it's an absolute fact. The way they played against, the New Mexico States of the world early on, I think they've started to rewrite how this Auburn team is going to be looked at going through the rest of the season, because I do think that what we're seeing, they talk about the depth on the defensive line. Like, Hugh Freeze has made no bones about it. Like, he wants as many bodies that can play to keep them fresh. So you rotate them in, and there's been a bunch of guys on that defensive line that have played a lot of snaps, and they've gone out and they've dominated, and they seem fresh when they're going in the third and fourth quarters, when it's time to put games on ice. So I think that collectively, what Auburn has done on the defensive side, and there's still some things in the secondary they need to clean up, but the fact that the front seven has really, really dominated the first 2 games of the season, I think that this is something they can hang their hat on. And if they ever get into, the defensive struggles, or when their offense isn't clicking, kind of like situations like they were in last year, you feel really confident that the defense can step up and hold things up until the offense starts to get things going in the right direction.
Yeah, I would say, and my last surprise, or the one that I wanted to highlight, kind of as an overall team, it's more so the offense than anything. But it's really just been how good Tennessee has looked in terms of not really missing a beat after Nico, and it honestly looks like they're probably better off in the situation they're in right now. Granted, we're going to learn a lot this weekend with the Georgia game, and that's going to be very interesting. I think Tennessee maybe feels a little better about that matchup than you have in the last couple of years. I could be wrong. I know that Hendon Hooker year, y'all were really excited, Damien, and that didn't work out.
Y'all.
Unfortunately. Sorry. Y'all in the past, because you're an Ole Miss fan now. But I have been really, really impressed with Tennessee and what they've looked like so far. But we'll learn a lot about them this weekend. And that's like Crimson Convict, who chimes in on the courtesy GMC text line. He throws out there, he says, Tennessee, I think Georgia could be 2-2 before October. So maybe predicting a loss to Tennessee and Alabama back-to-back here over the next couple of weeks there by Crimson Convict. This text says, the biggest surprise to me so far is that there's not a clear worst team in the conference. Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Who, Alabama?
No, it's Kentucky. They had their best chance.
That's a bold take from an Ole Miss fan.
Man, whatever. We still won the game, but Zach Calzada has proven big time. He should have just stayed in Incarnate Word and just set records down there, because I just don't think he's consistent enough. I really don't. And when games are put on his shoulders, he's kind of shown you, besides that one when he was at Texas A&M, this is exactly who he is.
Yeah. Well,
you remember that game when he was at Texas A&M, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
When, I was just wondering if you remembered.
He has made a career off of that One game, most certainly. So, hey, good for him. That's America for you right there, right? If you can capitalize on it, absolutely go for it. So, so there's some surprises, some of the positives of what we've seen through 2 weeks so far of the SEC season. But we want to hear more from you as well as throw out some disappointments. There are some bad things. Yes, Alabama has been disappointing. I think that's fair to say.
And not necessarily a disappointment, but I'm kind of uneasy about it. Texas A&M, I think they're putting too much on Marcel Reed. I think that what you have in your running back room, and it could be an offensive line thing where they're maybe kind of disguising some things, but I think what you have in your running back room, you should just hand them the ball 50 to 60 times a game and let Marcel Reed just be comfortable. Now, you do have you got some dudes at receiver. I will give
I say Craver and
yeah, and Casey Concepcion.
yeah.
I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily think you need to go out here and start airing it out. Like, I think you need to establish the run game and kind of be physical, because I don't think Mike Elko really wants it to be like that. I actually think, at least his demeanor kind of seems as though, like, let's play some smash mouth football, and then we'll open it up when Marcel Reed, with some play action RPOs. And I just think that I never would have thought that he was going to throw the ball 40 times in a football game unless they were down. I think that you need to make the identity running the football, chewing the clock, and then open it up because of what you have outside. But again, I understand that you got some real juice out there and you want to give them the ball. But I just think the identity, they're going to have an identity crisis when they run into a secondary that's actually worth the flip. Like, it's going to be, okay, Marcel Reed, you got to start dicing some people up. And not to say that he can't do it, but I think the looks that you're getting against a Utah State and a UTSA,
no, it's gonna
be the same against a Texas and even Mississippi State of the world.
Yeah, and we'll get to see them take on Auburn early on in the season too, and we'll get to see that matchup with an Auburn secondary that we've certainly heard a lot of good things about, but has some room to grow after that Baylor game, obviously. But yeah, that'll be an interesting matchup, no doubt about it, coming up. So there's a disappointment for Damian with Texas A&M and kind of their offensive identity for right now. But we're going to run to our last break, come back, give you some more disappointments from early on in the SEC season, as well as take your phone calls and read your text on the courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450. That's all coming up next on Morning Jocks. 6:50 a.m. Appreciate you tuning it into Morning Jocks. Connor and Damien here with you for a few more moments before we hand you off to McElroy and Kublik in the morning. Sharing some of our surprises and disappointments from the SEC season so far, and we're going to hear from you here in just a moment. But Damien shared one of his disappointments with y'all before the break, and that was Texas A&M's offensive identity maybe leaning a little too much on Marcel Reed. And is that something that's going to have to change once they move into conference play? Is that going to come back to bite them there for the Texas A&M Aggies? And I think we all know, right, there's some obvious choices in terms of disappointments. I think we'd all agree that Alabama, now granted, they bounced back against ULM, but we have to see more than that. I think for a lot of people to be back on the train there for Alabama, but they certainly disappointed with how they looked against Florida State. There's no getting around that. I think Texas, with how they've looked, in my opinion, offensively, I think the Texas offense and Arch Manning has not been quite what you thought it would be. Granted, the 5 minutes against San Jose State where they scored 28 points, that was great. Other than that, though, it's certainly been a little bit of a rough start there, I think, for Sark and Arch Manning. And then I think Florida, with their loss to USF and now Billy Napier being back on the hot seat, would certainly be a disappointment. But kind of in conjunction with all that, and I don't know if you agree with this, Damien, but I've just been a little bit disappointed by all these quarterbacks that we hyped up in the offseason. And not to say that they've been bad necessarily, but I don't think Arch, Nuss, Lenora Sellers, Austin Simmons, I don't think any of those guys have necessarily shown what we were expecting to see from them. Doesn't mean that they can't by the end of the season, but certainly through 2 weeks, I think those guys have a little bit left to prove.
Yeah. So if you had to pick, who is the best quarterback in the SEC right now?
John Mateer.
Who's number 2?
I know who you want me to say, and let me see them play some real competition, but Taylor Green has looked quite good.
Who's number 3?
I don't know. I'd still probably go Nuss.
I got you. But no, I agree with you, though. I do agree that the guys that we were kind of hanging our hat on, had no second thoughts, they really haven't necessarily, especially Garrett Nussmeier. I think Clemson you can kind of understand, but La Tech, I was thinking he was about to set an LSU passing record, and that offense just did not flow the way I thought it was. And kind of similar to Lenore Sellers, I think he's still spectacular, but there's still some things to clean up.
Correct.
So nobody is just kind of, besides John Mateer, is truly just like, you turn on the tape and it's like, okay, that's a guy.
He's been by far the most impressive.
Yeah. I'd throw Joey Aguilar in there as well. But he's
been good.
He's got a great head coach.
I thought you were trying to get me to say Diego Pavia.
No. I know you still got a heavy disdain for him, but nothing personal.
That will be addressed.
It will be addressed accordingly.
That will be addressed accordingly. So there's some of our thoughts, some of our surprises and disappointments for the season. So now we'll close things out with some of your thoughts as well. Let's go to Deacon. He's been waiting on the phone lines for a while this morning. Deacon, how we doing this morning?
What's going on, Conrad, my friend? It's been a while. Hadn't talked to you. I hope life's treating you well. Oh, and hello, Oxford.
What's up, brother?
What's going on in the Grove? Nice to hear your voice.
Hey, I appreciate it. 2-0, baby.
Conrad,
What's up?
I had a question for you and Oxford.
Okay.
Had a question. I wanted y'all's opinion on the most disappointing SEC score from the weekend, in y'all's opinion. It can be anybody.
The most disappointing score?
Most surprising. Let me put it that way. Most surprising.
28-6, Georgia over Austin Peay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everybody's saying the Florida-South Florida game. Look, guys, I wasn't expecting South Florida to win, but I thought
you knew it was going to be
South
close.
Florida,
yeah.
I thought plus 17.5 was ridiculous, and my bank account said thank you.
Oh, yeah.
But the Oklahoma game, that game surprised me. It wasn't that Oklahoma won. I picked them. It was the way they won. And Conrad, I got to give y'all props because I thought y'all were blowing smoke about John Mateer, but he's the truth. He is the truth.
We tried to tell everyone.
We tried.
Y'all have converted me. Mateer's the truth. But, and another question. You're the number 12 team in the country, right? I know Scatterboo is in New York now, but you're the number 12 team in the country. And Mississippi State is an SEC team. But how in the name of all that is holy with 30 seconds left do you let a wide receiver that far behind the defense?
I know.
I don't understand.
It's gonna give them nightmares.
And one more thing I got to say, Conrad, I'm afraid you're disappointed in me for not being able to turn Oxford to the light. But, not everybody, as my preacher says, you can't get everybody to turn right away. But if they stay on the path long enough, eventually they will see the light and come to the proper side. So hopefully he gets his fill of the grove in Oxford, and at some point in his life decides that repentance is necessary, and he can scream Roll Tide on the gridiron as well as the hardwood. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
We appreciate you, Deacon. Awesome call there, man. Sorry we didn't get to everybody. We're back tomorrow at 6 a.m., but McElroy and Kublik in the morning, they're next.